Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have Zeroptian Invasion, a space shooter inspired by the classics. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Joshian, Zeroptian Invasion originally released for PCs in November of 2018. Now in April of 2019, it's available for the Nintendo Switch, which is the version I'm playing today, the Xbox1, the PlayStation 4, and the PlayStation Vita. It's great to go and see more Vita ports. So Zeroptian Invasion is a fixed shooter similar to Space Invaders and Galaga. Let's look quickly at the options. So we do have the ability to play the game in Tate, both left Tate and right Tate. I actually got those reversed. CRT filter is also available, although I feel it's easier to show the game off without. And then also there are a couple options, including specifically a setup for Tate controls, which is really nice to have. Diving into the game itself. Warning, Zeroptians have returned. They are invading the F1 system planet. Protect the galaxy. We trust in you. So our first stage is very similar to a Space Invader look to it. We've got a line of enemies that are slowly working their way down towards us, firing shots, some barriers which will defend us from their shots. Although they won't last forever, eventually they will break. And there are also UFOs that travel at the top of the screen. If we shoot those UFOs at the top of the screen, we will get power-ups from them. So really, we have the ability to move left and right, we have the ability to shoot, and we can collect some power-ups. Your basic fixed shooter. But as we play through the game, the formula will change up just a little bit. So the 3 power-ups that we can potentially collect, there's an S, which will give us a shield, which we can take a hit with, P, which will give us a power-up. Normally, we can only have a single shot on the screen, but if we happen to get the P power-up, let's see if we can get that from this UFO. Yay, it is indeed a P. The P allows us to have 2 shots on the screen at one time. And then there's the arrow, which is actually a speed up. But because, I guess, maybe because the S is already represents shield, they figured they'd go with something different for the speed up. So this third stage is interesting. So this barrier in front of us can't be destroyed as much as we shoot it or as much as the enemies shoot it. And that'll come into play here in just a second. So if we do collect another power-up that we already have, we get a point bonus of 500 points. And where the game is a relatively low-scoring game, that's actually can be huge. If we collect 15,000 points, we will get an extra one up. Aha! So that is why that barrier couldn't be destroyed. It's our first boss. So every 3 stages, we'll encounter a boss. And then after a boss, there'll be kind of a break round, and then we'll be back to the normal stages. So this is our first boss. Each boss has a relatively narrow weak point that we have to hit. Get enough shots in there, and we'll be moving on to the next stage. Although before that, we do get a hit ratio, and based off of that hit ratio, we'll get a certain bonus. Basically 100 times the percentage that we have achieved. So 41%, not great. I might have shot a little bit too much. So these in-between rounds can actually be really tricky. We've got these enemies flying at us in various patterns, shooting their weapons at us, which could potentially, no, don't kill us, take us out pretty easy. So now the enemies are these red spiders and insects that shoot spider webs at us, and spider webs are interesting. They don't actually kill us, though they will slow you down temporarily. Not too problematic, but if you happen to have a shield, they will destroy your shield, so you do have to be careful of that. And in each new world, basically, there are new hazards that are added, and that one you had shockwaves bouncing down the side of the wall. In this stage here, we'll have avalanches where rocks will be falling from the middle of the screen, making it kind of difficult to get in there and shoot the enemies in the middle of the pack. But we just need to be careful to avoid being there when the rocks are falling, and maybe just take them out as they get closer to the sides. some enemies will take multiple hits, and they'll just like transition through the colors that we've seen before. So in the case of this enemy, they start red, then they'll go to white, and... oh, I was hoping to be able to get that UFO. If you die, you do lose your power-up, so that's something to note. So we are to our third stage now, and we have this great white spiderweb back behind us. So I wonder what kind of boss we could possibly be encountering after we clear all these enemies. Let's see if we can get that UFO. Yes! P power-up, double the firepower. So there we have it. That's Zeroptian Invasion served up for your enjoyment. So as far as the minus flavors are concerned, the biggest problem I have with it is I kind of feel like there's just some balance issues with just the number of lives, really. The number of lives you start out with default is 2, the one that you're playing and 1 in reserve. Like I mentioned, it is possible to get additional 1-ups, but if you happen to go and run your counter to 0, you don't have 1 more life. You actually have to continue, and you continue back at the beginning of that round after the last boss that you fought and defeated. Then with the power-ups, I kind of wish there were a few more... there was more variety to the power-ups, more variety to the weapons maybe, or something along those lines. I do appreciate the really classic feel, as that's one of the plus flavors that I give it, but I don't know, maybe just because this kind of game has been done a lot, it is nice to go and see just a little bit more innovation. Though there is a decent bit of innovation with the enemies and some of the environmental hazards that you encounter throughout the course of the game. On the plus flavors, those very environmental hazards I was talking about. As you progress through the worlds, you'll start to see other kinds of interesting and unique environments and hazards to encounter. Like the 5th world, for example, you have these lines of water where when your shots enter them, they slow down, really changing up the timing for shooting the enemies on the other sides of those lines of water. And I really like that kind of innovation. Then we also have, for plus flavors, the slow addition of color. So you notice when things became red, we also got a little bit of red highlight on our ship. As you go to the other worlds, you'll start to go and get additional colors added. The world that comes after this is blue, and our wingtips suddenly become blue. And then, for the last plus flavor, it's really just the classic feel of the game itself, mixed in with some new. You have some great boss fights to play around with. Even if some of them are relatively basic, it's still really fun that they're all different and unique. So if you're looking to go and scratch that Space Invader itch, then Zeroptian Invasion is one that I can definitely recommend, especially as you can play it on your platform of choice. I definitely appreciate that it is available on all the major platforms that are currently out there these days. Alright, well, that should just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.